Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. The new year is still fresh, and today I wanted to look back on how far we've come in such a short time. Something that felt like it would take an entire year, the 5,000 subscriber special, Heroes Explained, was met in April. It was an incredible triumph, not just for our community here, but for the people who pitched in to make those videos possible. But something that stuck in my craw ever since were a few comments asking, where are the heroics? They've got hero in the name after all. I guess I set myself up for that one, huh? And Dimension Force seems to be jumping on that bandwagon, because it released even more support for the theme. But first, a look back. Heroic Challengers were released in the 2012 core set Return of the Duelist, with one of their boss monsters acting as the cover card for the set. In the anime, they were piloted by Nistro after dropping Bouncers, and yeah, this is exactly the kind of person I expected to see playing a beatdown deck like this. So, without further ado, let's familiarize ourselves with these monsters' heroic traits, see how they work in action, then see if we can get a bard to strum up some tales for some accompanying traveling companions. It's time to raise our banners for Heroic Challengers! But before we continue, a quick reminder to please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed my content so far. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers, and the first stop on our trip is 20k, which means we're incredibly close to unlocking Yusei Explained, where we'll be covering Junks, Stardust, and whatever other cards can help us rev it up. We've also got our Discord, where the only NFT we promote is having Nibiru first turn. You can also follow me on Twitch, where you can join me for viewer duels and progression pulls, and don't forget about my Patreon, where you can gain access to my videos early, reach some of these milestones, as well as helping to determine which explained videos I make. Thank you all so much for watching, and now, back to the video. So, what's the deal with Heroic Challengers? Well, they're a series of Earth attribute warrior type monsters who are, in general, named after common arms and armor, who are primarily level 4 with some level 1s and a 6 splashed in for reasons. Some of our main deck monsters have nice stats, but the primary purpose of them is to enable our Xyz plays. While they're one of the many decks that can leverage a rank 4 toolbox, since they largely lack any restrictions on their effects, they're primarily focused on summoning out their own Xyz monsters, the Heroic Champions, named after legendary weapons whose attributes are a bit more varied. But let's start with those Heroic Challengers, since they form the foundation of the theme. And we'll begin with our level 1s. Heroic Challenger Ambush Soldier has 0 attack and defense, and during your standby phase, you contribute this card to special summon up to 2 Heroic Challenger monsters from your hand and or grave, except another copy of itself. And when you do so, you can banish Ambush Soldier from your grave to make all Heroic Challenger monsters you currently control level 1. This is a particularly hard card to use, not gonna lie. Its abysmal stat line means it's a high risk, high reward card, but the trick with this kind of stuff is mitigating the risk, and the deck doesn't really have an on-theme way to keep it safe. Now, this isn't to say you're without options. You could play Back to the Front to summon this from your grave to get all the benefits without risking battle destruction, or use Reinforced Truth to do something similar during your opponent's end phase. But that's a lot of effort to get them going, and call me old-fashioned, but soldiers are supposed to work for you, not the other way around. Heroic Challenger Clasp Sword has 300 attack and 100 defense, and when special summoned by the effect of a Heroic Challenger monster, you can add a Heroic Challenger monster from your deck to your hand. Hey, more consistency while putting a body on board, that's pretty neat. The fact that it has to be via a Heroic Challenger monster means it's a bit restrictive, and doesn't help you access your rank 4s by itself, but since we live in the Link age now, that's hardly a problem. In fact, it's kinda commendable. Going through any RPG at only level 1 is pretty impressive. Our last level 1 is also one of our newest, Heroic Challenger Knuckle Knife. They have 600 attack and 200 defense, and if you control a heroic monster, except a level 1, you can special summon Knuckle Knife from your hand. And if normal or special summoned, you can target a warrior monster you control, and the level of that monster or Knuckle Knife become the other's level. But you can't declare an attack with anything for the rest of the turn, except Xyz monsters. Which isn't a huge deal, since that's your primary means of aggression anyway. And if you just summon them, but don't need the level modulation, you don't even have to worry about that. This card is a no-nonsense extender to help get you into your big Xyz plays, which means this Knuckle, don't chuckle. Okay, that's enough of the rookie level 1s, on to the veteran level 4s. Heroic Challenger Double Lance has 1700 attack and 900 defense, and when normal summoned, you can special summon another copy of Double Lance from your hand or grave in phase-up defense position. And in general, Double Lance can't be used as synchro material, as well as an Xyz material, except for the Xyz summon of a warrior-type monster. Not really much to say here. This monster is basically a way worse tour guide, but a 1-card rank 4 that requires a tiny bit of setup is still better than a lot of cardboard chaff. It still provides a neat bit of value that'll have you seeing double. Heroic Challenger Extra Sword has 1000 attack and defense, and if used as Xyz material for any Xyz monster, that Xyz gains an effect where, on Xyz summon, it gains a persistent 1000 attack boost. Now, this is a pretty simple effect and is obviously great news for our aggressive deck, but because it can generically help any Xyz monster it can be used as Xyz material for, it's got the same kind of recontextualization that the original Yang Zings had with Synchros, granting extra effects to show them off in a new light. Blade Armor Ninja, for instance, will shoot up to an incredible 3200, making it one of the most lethal double attackers out there. Cairn Gorgon becomes much more threatening when it's harder to take on in battle, and other utility Xyz like Castel and Tornado Dragon can get rid of cards and be aggressive against bigger monsters. And that's if we only use one extra sword. Make a monster with 2 and they'll have quite the edge on your competition. Heroic Challenger Night Watchman has 1200 attack and 300 defense, and if they attack a defense position monster your opponent controls before damage calculation, you can destroy that monster. It's basically an on-theme Drillroid in case you're fighting a defensive wall that brute force isn't going to get you over. It's got its own little niche, but I doubt it's going to land turn in many victories to you. Heroic Challenger Spartan has 1600 attack and 1000 defense, and once per turn when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can target a face-up heroic monster you control, except itself, and Spartan gains attack equal to that face-up monster's original attack until the end of the battle phase. This is actually kinda cool. Not very powerful since it triggers on your opponent's attacks, it's a purely defensive ability, but does mean it can grow to towering heights when paired with other monsters. So as long as you go wide, Spartan is a safe attacker that can be hard to attack into when it's got its phalanx friends to back it up. And yada yada yada, this is Sparta, on to the next card. Heroic Challenger Sword Shield has 0 attack and 2000 defense, and during either player's turn as a quick effect, if you control a face-up heroic monster, you can send Sword Shield from your hand to the grave, and for the rest of the turn, you take no battle damage, and heroic monsters you control can't be destroyed by battle. That's pretty neat. It's nice that it blinks all battle damage, not just damage done through heroic monster battles, so it's like a very selective Wabaku as a hand trap, but doesn't really do much besides. Probably too busy trying to get one of those newfangled Galarian Zigzagoons to provide us much more utility. Heroic Challenger Assault Halberd has 1800 attack and 200 defense, and if your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. It deals piercing battle damage, and when Assault Halberd deals battle damage, you can add any heroic card from your deck to your hand. This piece of legacy support debuted in the World Superstars set, and was a great tempo boost not only to heroics, but to rank 4 decks in general, as you can summon them out quick without using your normal summon. Attacking nets you advantage even against defensive monsters, then you can normal summon the monster you search to make a rank 4. I'd go so far as to say it's easily a gold standard for level 4 monsters, because it's quick, aggressive, and makes sure you're pole armed for whatever comes next. And released alongside them was Heroic Challenger 1000 Blades. They have 1300 attack and 1100 defense, and once per turn, if this card is in attack position, you can discard a heroic card. You cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except heroic monsters. Also special summon a heroic monster from your deck, and if you do, change 1000 Blades to defense position. And when you take damage while this card is in your grave, you can special summon this card in attack position. And here it is, one half of the rather infamous combo, Clown Blade. See, Blades here doesn't care where the damage comes from, just that you've been dealt damage, which synergizes quite nicely with Performage Trick Clown, who, if sent to the grave, can revive itself right before dealing you a cool 1000 points of damage. And guess what? It's level 4 too! That sounds weird saying it out loud. This means you can send Trick Clown to the grave, summon it out, Blade tags along, you make a rank 4, use their ability once by detaching Blades, then on your next turn you can detach Clown Blade to do it all over again. Or if the Xyz monster leaves the field, that can also trigger them and Blades. This gives you a repeatable rank 4 every turn at a very reasonable price. And while its first effect caught off a lot of plays, it was still situationally relevant. Normally you play 3 Halberd and 1 Blades, since the former can search the latter. Then you could play the rest of your turn as normal, and since Blades is, to my recollection, one of the first cards to have the "for the rest of the turn" turn templating on restrictions, blades could turn a spare halberd in hand into one on the board to give you more bodies to work with. They're very, very good at what they do, but they are a bit of a hoarder. Like, do you really need that many blades? Seems a bit excessive. Heroic Challenger Morningstar has 1500 attack and 1300 defense, and if you control 2 or more warrior monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. We do love those extenders, and if normal or special summoned, you can add a heroic spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Also, if in your grave and you have 500 life points or less, you can special summon Morningstar from your grave, but negate its effects. Nope, that's not a misplaced Dynorphia effect. This is Heroic Challenger's new gimmick. Or rather a gimmick that's finally being adapted from the anime, being at the brink of defeat to bring out their full power. However, I'd argue that that's just icing on the cake. Even without it, this monster is a Stratos for your support and can provide you with even more material to extend your plays, but it's gonna be hard for me to incorporate it into any version of the deck I use, and I expect that will be the same for everyone else who's not a morning person. Our last main deck monster is also our only level 6, Heroic Challenger Warhammer. They have 2100 attack and 1300 defense, and when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the grave, you can equip the destroyed monster to this card, and it can only be equipped with a single monster at a time with this effect, and Warhammer gains attack equal to the equipped monster's attack. Now, Sword Hunter effects have always had a special place in my heart. Defeating an opponent's monster just to add it to your arsenal is pretty sweet, but it just doesn't mesh with the rest of your deck. You could name this card something entirely different and the theme's game plan wouldn't miss a beat. The new support doesn't even find a way to use this effectively, though it might be because their name is repping a whole other tabletop game entirely. Alright, now it's time to talk about the Heroic Champion Xyz monsters, but unlike our usual numeric order, we'll go from our rank 4s to our rank 1s, starting with Heroic Champion Excalibur. They're a light attribute monster with 2000 attack and defense, requiring 2 level 4 warrior monsters as material. Once per turn, Excalibur can detach 2 material from itself, and its attack becomes double its original attack until your opponent's next end phase. So any 2 level 4 warriors can turn into an obelisk-sized monstrosity for a couple of turns before reverting to their normal size. And while its might isn't long-lived, its strength comes from careful application. You're not going to want to summon this all willy-nilly, but if you need a big monster to get over another that's too strong and is protected from card effects, or if you've got a straight shot for game and an extra 4000 attack would help close things out, then this Xyz monster is king. Heroic Champion Gandiva has 2100 attack and 1800 defense, requires 2 level 4 warrior monsters as material, and is our first foray into the deck's control capabilities. Once per turn, when any number of level 4 or lower monsters are special summoned to your opponent's side of the field, except during the damage step, you can detach a material from this card to destroy those special summoned monsters. So while the effect is once per turn, it can hit multiple monsters if they're special summoned at the same time. So anything that mass summons, like pendulums, are a great target for Gandiva's effect, though it doesn't negate the summons, so they'll go right back to the extra. But maximizing monster destruction isn't the end-all be-all for this card, as precision striking a monster special summoned from the deck or out of the grave to get a play sequence going can be just as important. However, the level limit of the effect is truly unfortunate, as this misses anything level 5 or higher, Xyz monsters, and ironically enough, monsters with link arrows. Heroic Champion Kusanagi has 2500 attack and 2400 defense, requiring 3 level 4 warrior monsters as material. Once per turn, during either player's turn as a quick effect, when a trap card is activated, you can detach a material from this card to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Then this card gains a persistent 500 attack boost. So now you have a way to fight cards like Infinite Impermanence, Ice Dragon's Prison, Shadal's Schism, any kind of trap you could imagine. Except counter traps. But the problem is that it takes so much investment to make. If it was, say, an Omni Negate, it'd be a much better investment. But you're either making this on turn 1, in which case it's going to be a while before any traps show up for you to negate, or you're making it once your opponent has established trap cards, in which case you have to hope none of them get in the way of summoning Kusanagi. Sure, by negating cards, it slowly becomes a monster that rivals the power of Excalibur, but that takes far too long to fire up. Alright, if you have an aversion to format warping super threats, you best look away now. And yes, I am saying that in a heroic video. Just goes to show that any archetype can produce some absolutely wild cards. Presenting number 86, Heroic Champion Rhongomyniad, a dark monster with 1500 attack and defense, requiring 2 or more, though only up to a maximum of 5, level 4 warrior monsters as material. Once per turn during your opponent's end phase, you have to detach a material from this card, but gains effects depending on the number of materials attached to it. If they have 1 or more, Rhongomyniad can be destroyed by battle. With 2 or more, it gains 1500 attack and defense, making it a sizable 3000/3000. 3 or more and it's unaffected by other cards' effects. With 4 or more, your opponent can't normal summon or set, and with exactly 5, once per turn, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. So at the height of its power, it's a bigger Last Warrior from another planet with a megaton magical cannon strapped to it while being it towers. This was, of course, something of a pipe dream on release. No warrior deck was capable of assembling 5 materials into a single monster. Not even Teller Knights were pulling that trick off, and that deck has mastered the 3 Matic Xyz. But that's where its status as a number monster comes into play, as a 2 material Rongo can easily turn into a 5 material with the help of number 75 Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, a monster that can attach itself to other number monsters as material, taking all of its material along with it. Even at its minimum 2 material, it'd end up being a 3 material boost. So now, Rongo could clear a board if your opponent had anything on the board yet, then they'd have to play 2 turns of only setting monsters from their hand while you had free reign of your own game plan. Now, interrupting the combo is more than doable, especially today, but once it gets going, it's almost impossible to interact with. You can't even kaiju over it like you normally would with Towers-type monsters, because it even keeps you from summoning, so they just ban the darn thing, and thank goodness for it. The ability to summon a plethora of material has only gotten more powerful since Lynx hit the scene, and needing warriors as a base material is such a low barrier to entry that you'd see decks splashing Gokis to make another run at top tier contention. So farewell, Rongo Bongo, you will not be missed. Now we've got some new Xyz. Heroic Champion claims Soleil is a light monster that has 2500 attack and 2000 defense, and requires 2 level 4 warrior monsters as material. Monsters your opponent controls cannot target another monster you control for attacks, which does mean this can cause an attack lock if you have 2 on the field. When an attack is declared involving an opponent's monster, you can detach a material from this card to target a face-up monster your opponent controls, and boost claims attack by the target's attack until the end of the turn. So it's like having an honest effect, but worded in a way that lets you attack your opponent's weakest monster while gaining the attack of their strongest. Also, you can pay life points until you have 500 left to apply a lingering effect that, at the start of the battle phase, doubles the attack of 1 face-up monster you control. It's the kind of effect you play when the game is all but decided, or you have to end the game on the spot. Doesn't matter what your life points are if you lose the game otherwise. Might as well go for broke. The way it works is also pretty fascinating. While you leave yourself open to quick effect burn, i.e. do not activate this against trick stars, it does mean you can activate all kinds of effects that care about life point differences before you move to the battle phase. One such card being Morning Star. Claims Soleil can be a powerful game ender, but even without the hefty life point cost effect, is just a strong battler that can take out almost any monster while preventing your others from being attacked, making them quite the Celtic Guardian. Our last Xyz is one I'd never thought I'd see out of this theme, but thanks to Knuckle Knife, might see quite a bit of play. Heroic Champion Yarngrepper. They have 700 attack and 1800 defense, and the first time each warrior monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect each turn, it is not. Now, its small stature might make its defense seem like the way to go, but by detaching 2 material, Yarngrepper can target a level or rank 4 warrior monster in your grave and special summon it, and if you do, this card gains attack equal to the summoned monster's original attack. So if you revive Excalibur, then you've got a 2700 attack rank 1 with destruction protection. Also, when an attack is declared involving an opponent's monster, you can gain life points equal to half that opponent's monster's attack. This does trigger when attacking or being attacked, and it doesn't even have to involve Yarngrepper, but it only triggers once per turn, so you can't gain a flurry of life points by dealing a flurry of blows. But it is very important to have. Setting your life points to 500 is dangerous, no matter what the circumstance, but thankfully doesn't have very many applications out of its immediate usage and synergy with with Morningstar and Heroic Envoy, more on that in a bit. Yarn Grepper here can proceed to pick you back up from the brink so you can stay in the fight. And since their own attack boost effect is persistent and doesn't require you to keep that summoned monster on board, you can summon level 4s to help leverage your Xyz monsters, or summon an Xyz that you can rank up with. Either way, Yarn Grepper is a great way to send your opponent through the gauntlet. Alright, that's all the heroic monsters, onto the spells and traps. Heroic Chance is a normal spell that targets a face-up heroic monster you control. That turn, its attack is doubled, but it can't attack directly. So it's basically Excalibur's effect, but for any of your on-theme monsters. Though you can't just swing in on an open board, you will need to face your opponent in honorable combat. The wording here is also very important too. See, it's not exactly Excalibur's effect, because that monster's effect changes its attack to double its original attack. So even if you equip it with Axe of Despair to boost to 3000 before activating their effect, they're still only going to be at 4000. Chance, on the other hand, just doubles the current attack. So if you use Excalibur's effect first, then hit it with Chance, then you've got an 8000 attack monster. And with Claim being worded the same way, you can double the attack again. At that point, it doesn't matter what monster your opponent has, as long as they're in attack position, their life points don't stand a chance. Heroic Envoy is a normal spell that adds a heroic monster from your deck to your hand, which is a neat way to add more reinforcement of the armies to your deck. And if your life points are at 500 or less, you can banish Envoy from your grave, then target a heroic card in your grave and add it to your hand. This can curiously be another copy of itself, but I guess if you're that close to losing the game, you should be afforded a little bit of lenience. And yeah, since you can grab cards, there's nothing on theme you can't recycle. All in all, this is just a solid addition to the archetype that'll help keep your available cards focused so they're not just roaming around. Heroic Advance is a normal trap that you can activate when a face-up heroic monster you control is targeted for an attack. You target another face-up level 4 or lower heroic monster you control, double its attack during this battle phase, then switch the attack target to it and conduct damage calculation. But monsters cannot be destroyed by this battle. This is actually pretty cool as far as combat tricks go. While we can't redirect to and boost our Xyz monsters, a lot of our main deck monsters actually have a decent stat line, with Morningstar going to 3000 and Assault Halberd going to 36. Monsters not being destroyed here is kinda rough. You can't use it as a weird kind of removal, but it does save you if your monster would be smaller regardless. And if your opponent runs out of life points from the attack, it won't really matter that their monster wasn't destroyed. And they get to keep that boost through the whole battle phase. But well, on top of only being a combat trick that shuts off battle destruction, it doesn't do anything else for you. You could run less copies and search it off Morningstar as needed, but Advance kinda loses its luster if your opponent knows it's there. It's literally Advanced Warning. Heroic Gift is a normal trap that you can activate if your opponent has 2000 or less life points. On resolution, you make their life points 8000, and if you do, draw 2 cards. Now, of course, the idea of giving your opponent at least 6000 life points to draw 2 cards is laughable. Why would you take your opponent away from the brink of defeat like that? And I agree, if you can go for lethal, that's always the better thing to do. But I'm gonna drop a hot take here. With Morningstar being able to search this out when needed, I think you should run at least 1 copy. Here's the thing, if life points are a resource you can spend to get meaningful advantage, the inverse can also be true. If your opponent is at 2000 life points, but you don't have the resources needed to get over their defenses and take control of the game, it doesn't really matter if their life points are at 2000 or 8000. But with Gift, you could get the 2 cards you need to get back in the game. However, your opponent does need to have low enough life points, which is why I advocate for a single copy, which you can search and recycle as needed. And with the kind of attack boosting we can bring to bear, all we need to take 8000 to 0 is 1 clean hit. Then, keep 2 more of these in your sideboard for the Dinorphia matchup, cause they're gonna get to that life point amount really quick. Our last card is Heroic Retribution Sword, a normal trap that targets a face-up heroic monster you control and equips to it. All battle damage you take from battles involving the equipped monster is also inflicted on your opponent, and after damage calculation, destroy any opponent's monsters that battled with the equipped monster. This is actually pretty nifty when you're on the back foot. Charge in with a low attack monster, give it Retribution Sword, then do some Amazona Swordswoman-esque damage reflection, and take out your opponent's monster while you're at it. And this card got got even better with the release of Yarngrepper, because now the monster is going to survive the attack, plus get you back a little bit of life points for your trouble. Retribution Sword now turns our weakest heroics into battlefield all-stars that will make our opponent think twice about tussling with us. Revenge, after all, is a dish best served on a giant flaming sword! So that's all the heroic cards, but what do we do with them? Well, while the deck has a few options to curtail our opponent's actions, we're really all in on the big battle beats. We'll be playing as many warriors that can special summon themselves as possible to turbo out a Claim Soleil fueled victory, and every other card should be used to clear a path for their aggro actions. But what can we play to help them out? While I initially pigeonholed them as Amazonas-less Amazonas, some War Rock cards can help here. Gakdos is like a Kage to Kage, but matches the type and attribute of the theme, and Bashilios can float in after an Earth Heroic is destroyed by battle, thus giving you a quick way to end games by fielding a gigantic direct attacker. Reinforcement of the army's troops might also be a fun one, as you can attack with Halberd, search a monster, attack with another warrior, which then triggers troops, summoning what you searched. Heroic Gift is a searchable draw trap, but you have little control on when your opponent will be in range for it. Hope for Escape, on the other hand, is slightly more usable. While not searchable, you can set your life points dangerously low, and while 500 is a bit less than the 1000 life point activation cost, Yarngrepper can get you just enough for it. Heck, you could end up running both. Use Heroic Gift to make sure your opponent is in peak condition, then make sure your life points are 3000 or less. You'll have drawn a total of 5 cards using 2 traps. Now you just have to make sure those cards will win you the game. The original Noble Arms not only work here, but are also kind of thematically appropriate considering the legendary weapon theming. While you won't have a Noble Knight to re-equip them to, Caliburn gets you a bit of life points back, Gallatin is a huge boost, and Destiny can provide even more destruction protection. Or give one of them Chlorent so they can use their massive attack power to attack directly. And of course, if we're talking Noble Knights, we can't avoid talking about adding in Isolde. And speaking of equip cards, Assault Armor is outrageous here. Any boost you give to the monster is effectively doubled by the nature of them having 2 attacks, so drop this onto Claim or Excalibur to make your opponent's big number a very small number very quick. As for a silly tech pick, we have a lot of attack boosting effects, but if we don't have enough available, it'll be hard to one-shot our opponent through a monster, which is where Propitious Warrior Lady comes in. Remember how Dark Honest came out a little while ago? Well, this monster is like that for warriors, though it reduces by their original attack, not their entire attack. But in most cases, that's hardly a noticeable difference. Not only can this win you a game out of nowhere, it can even help your smaller heroics get over bigger threats. And if you need more long-term solutions, Propitious can banish themselves from the grave to add an Earth Warrior from your grave to your hand, so you can get back Assault Halberd for more aggro, or Morningstar for searches. And that's all I've got to say about heroic challengers. We've seen quite a few get big, hit hard decks over the years, but I don't think I've seen one that's so consistent and compact as this. Find the right mix of cards to carry your champions to the finish line, and you'll find your next challenge wasn't quite as daunting as you thought. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Do you think the meta has a new challenger approaching, or are they not ready to smash? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, please make sure to like this video to show your support, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and share this video with someone you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode was brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh!, Nebula Navigators, Adam Zagidel, Benjamin Meisner, Eric, Gloomba 331, Howling Zangetsu, John Manji, Panther J, Shooting Star 3300, The Fresh Prince of Con Air, Sun Sorrow and the Wizard Moose, and Cosmic Crusaders, Bear Sharktopus Studios, Chaz Ghost, Colin Todd, RGS, and the Legendary Raven, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. And if you'd like to be a part of the credits as well as help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, please check out my YouTube membership or Patreon links in the description to see if I have anything you'd like on offer. And if you want to see another video about amazing Earth Warriors, check out this video I did about Amazonas. And if you want to see 2 Yu-Gi tubers going at it, check out Noah Jenk and I's latest series, Progression Polls, where your voice shapes the format. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.